DGM Insights False Expectations in Relationships Swingers Guide.
So, with marriage, there's quite a few expectations. And expectations, when it goes down in time, you look at those expectations and you think, well, maybe I had the wrong idea. And so, marriage and marital bliss is an expectation that is not absolutely, it's not anywhere near true, usually. So you need to look at your expectations, especially men and especially women, but you need to look at your expectations of what reality is. Now, normally they go along with what's called social normals. Social norms is the word for it, and it means what our society considers normal. Now that's changed for many reasons in the last 80, 90 years. Those normals have changed. Like years ago, you were a marked person if you got divorced, or you never said you were married if you got divorced. And there's a lot of shame put to that. Part of that is control by the male-generated society to keep women in control, because at the same point, it was expected that women be monogamous and men didn't have to be. And we know that women were not monogamous in a lot of ways, but they were expected social normals wise to be monogamous back then. So the women's liberation movement happened, and then social justice ideas reproductive justice ideas have come up. So things have changed in our society about monogamy and marriage and that expectation. But there are some other expectations that you should look at before you get married, especially for men, and both men and women, but especially when you're thinking about a long-term relationship. It doesn't have to be contractual marriage, but in a long-term relationship, it makes you wonder, what are you exactly expecting from this? Have you talked about it? And so the first key to that idea is to think to yourself, do I really understand the patterns of marriage? At the end, I'll give you kind of a chart about the expectations of marriage, but the divorce rates are pretty obvious that you have your first divorce in the first 7 to 10 years. You have a honeymoon period, which is kind of wonderful, and everything's new, and everything's sexy, and everything's perfect. And then you come to the 10-year mark where there's lack of communication, a lack of your expectations of sexuality have gone down to a marital sexuality instead of a honeymoon sexuality. Then you have the beginnings of child reproduction era, and that has its pitfalls as far as staying married. So your first real hurdle is 7 to 10 years of marriage. The second one is between 20 and 30 years. They call that the empty nest syndrome, where you look at yourself and you think, is this really what I want to be? Or my kids are growing up and leaving, or they're going to college, or they're getting their jobs and having their life started. Is this really where I want to be here? Am I getting what I really want out of this marriage? And a lot has to do with sexual expectations. It's been 20 years, same person, maybe with some bumps here and there. I had a bump. I had my first wife. After 7 years, she went to another guy, and it kind of reversed, and I stayed married to her. But the real burden was there for her, and it was just like the pattern of her life was there, and she wanted to change it. So that was the first 7 years. Now, we did get divorced about 20 years, so I know what I'm talking about here. And it was basically because we were married really young. We were married she was 16, I was 17. And so we were married really young, and that was the real basis for that divorce. We were different people. We were married young, and who we really are was two different people. And you can only grow together so much. And so I didn't know it at the time, but the divorce was a blessing. And you have to watch that changing over time about who you really are and who you want to be, and that stays together. And so we were in a very conservative church, a really horribly conservative church. It's a cult. And we were married, happily married, I would imagine. I was happily married. I loved her dearly. She was really precious to me, but it was really, the divorce was a good thing at that point, because we had to go separate ways. She certainly did. She wanted to be without any relationships, and she kept that for years. She finally got remarried years later, but it was good for her to leave the relationship. And if you love somebody, you want what's best for them. My point here is the expectations. If you're getting married the first time and you're 20 something, or 30 something, and you think you're going to stay forever together, it takes a lot of changes in the relationship. Now, if you're getting married later in life, I would suggest an ethical non-monogamy relationship. I would suggest that you make that clear to begin with, male or female, and there are reasons for it, and we'll name off some of those reasons, but just so you think about it. What is your expectations? And I'm going to go through some of them real quickly, and I'll edit them in here so you know what they are. Thank you.